So Jan Braai, a man particularly famous for braaiing in South Africa, very good at it is he, was accused of racism outside a store in Cape Town where he was doing a promotion, braaiing and handing out boerewors rolls on Heritage Day, also known as Braai Day. Jan Braai, the braai master, apparently did hand out this boerewors roll, and now there's video proving that he did actually give the man the boerewors roll. Now this is a big hullabaloo, a racial tension, another one, the second biggest one only this week. What does this show us about South Africa? Especially because it happened on Heritage Day, this points to a very specific thing, a very important thing, and that's the state of our monarchs, the kings and the traditional royal families in South Africa. You might think these two things are unrelated. I beg to differ. Let me show you how they are actually. A reminder that you can get a digital comic book emailed to you every single month when you become a member on our Buy Me a Coffee page. The first thing is the state of our monarchs. They have some power over the government in that they have power over people. There are still some people that live under their jurisdiction, as in on the king's land, and those people still live in a way that is led by the king, thus giving the monarchs power over those people to influence how they vote. That's the biggest power actually monarchs have in South Africa today, and that's why they still get money from the taxpayer every single year in the order of millions. So how does this matter for Jan Braai and his alleged allegation of not giving a black man a boerewors roll? The thing is, the monarchs have underperformed in South Africa and are not fulfilling a very strong role. They rather wait for the government to give them money and to sit on that money to enrich themselves and their families and to stay in power, when they should actually be doing the other thing that could be quite productive for the country and wouldn't cause men to lose their minds over slights, racism, or cause them to report false racism against people like Jan Braai. The thing is, that man felt that he could report that false racism against some guy braaiing meat outside a shop because he feels that man is somehow superior to him and he needs that man's approval. And if he doesn't meet that approval, or he felt uncomfortable taking the boerewors roll from him, accusing that man of racism gives the black man some sort of power, some sort of recognition, some sort of victimhood status. And it causes a fracas that could get him some money. This is a sort of person who does not have confidence in himself, in who he is and where he comes from and what his people have done.
What do you mean by that?
Hence Heritage Day. The problem with the monarchs is that they have not taken care of their people, they've taken care of themselves. A very simple thing that the monarchs should be doing can be divided into three parts. Preserve the languages, the language of a certain group, Pedi, Zulu, Venda, Xhosa, or any of the others. They need to preserve the language by giving after-school classes just like the Greeks and the Portuguese do and the Jews do to their children. They need to set up monarchy-built centers all over the country for their particular people group. Imagine a Pedi group that gives children lessons on their home language, on their mother tongue, in some township somewhere, where every Friday or every Saturday or every Thursday they go and their parents can register them or they can register themselves through their school, and they can get that language teaching and that cultural teaching every week. So you teach them the language and then you teach them about their history and their culture. So that's the second part. Preserve the history. Teach these children about their history, not just in schools. The monarchs should be setting up centers all over the country to preserve their culture. Instead of looking for the money just for themselves, they could be very effective in building a people, no matter where they live in South Africa, because they're a person of a certain ethnicity and a certain language. You preserve the language, you preserve the history, and then the third one, you have cultural events and cultural symbols. Imagine setting up museums, cultural centers, and events every year to celebrate certain festivals and certain things around that culture, around those people. People would even know the king's name. Most people in South Africa, no matter their culture or ethnicity or language or tribe, do not know their king and their king's name. Imagine if they did. The sort of confidence that comes from knowing your culture, celebrating with your people, having a place where you belong, and that you know how your bloodline works, how your family tree works, and where you've come from, and the history that you've gone through, and what your people built and what they did, and preserved your culture and your language. You can stand in front of any man as a complete person, whether he gives you a Boerewors role or not, because you don't care about that. You know who you are and you know what you're about. That's what the monarchs in South Africa should be working on, preserving the language, preserving the history, and preserving the culture, to build a strong people, a strong individuals who know who they are, know where they come from, can speak their mother tongue, and are not bothered by getting approval from some other man, whether he gives it to them or not, whether he respects them or not, because they know who they are and what they're about. We now have a course on Teachable. It's for boys between the ages of 10 and 18, about 12 men from the Bible, where we teach about manhood, masculinity, and becoming a man. Check it out. So what do we do with our monarchs? Do we say now we give them power to rule and to run kingdoms in this country? Not exactly. I don't think South Africa should ever be a monarchy. I'm not in the MK. And if a monarch wants to run this country, whose monarch gets to rule? Because before the whites came, there were different kingdoms, and people were opposed to each other as different peoples, just like the peoples of Europe, whether you were a Gaul, a Saxon, or an Anglo. Those people were different tribes. They look alike, but they were different tribes and different groupings. Same here. The Zulus, the Xhosa, the Bedi, Khoisan, these people are not the same, and they do not want to be the same, and they would not want to be ruled by any one monarch from some other tribe, because that's just colonialism. The person just happens to look like you. So what do we do with our monarchs? Yes, they can have money, and they can have funding, they can have trusts, and they can have lands, but their influence should not actually be governmental. They do not necessarily need a house in parliament themselves. They can, but it's purely symbolic. What they should be doing is exactly what I said, and it would still give them a lot of power. Preserve their culture within their groupings of people, wherever they may live. Set up networks and an organization that can reach their people everywhere. Why do these monarchs not have a website where you can register yourself, find your family tree, where your people are from, and then be accessed into a group where you can have links and contacts amongst your own people? This is something they should be doing. Preserve the language, preserve the history, and teach those things so that you can preserve the culture and have cultural symbols and festivals all over the country, including museums, statues, monuments, and large events every year.
Perfect.
What that means is that the monarchs of South Africa would not be political figures per se, and will have no real political power, but they will still have the social capital amongst their people. And can I tell you, if any of the monarchs really did this well, they would find themselves to be the most powerful monarch in the country, because they would have people that actually know them, like them, agree with them, and are actually under the leadership of that monarch on a cultural basis. This is something many of the black people in South Africa are always struggling with. Where do they belong and who are they? Imagine a king was so clever that he could actually step up with the truth and start giving his people exactly what they need. These are people, no matter where they live in South Africa, that will be loyal to this person. Why does this matter? It matters because it's important for people to know who they are and where they come from. It makes them into stronger, more grounded, more stable people with a deeper meaning to their lives and to things that they do and to things that happen to them. It grounds them, where they're the sort of person that cannot be shaken, whether they get a Boerewors role or not. They cannot be shaken and do not need the approval from some other man, because they do not see other people as better than themselves. They treat people the way they'd like to be treated, one would hope. It also matters because we cannot let our kings become a drain on the system without doing much and without preserving the cultures that they should be preserving, and while we lose the cultures that have originated indigenously from this country. People are always talking about preserving culture, but this would be the perfect way to do that. And they are the right people to do it, actually. They should be setting up countrywide organization to tap into their people using websites, social media, museums, language classes, cultural events, and all sorts of speaking engagements that they can engage in to unite their people, to excite them about their culture, and to tap them into other people of their own ethnicity. Imagine if one of the kings, let's say the Bedi king, created a bracelet, his own bracelet, in those Bedi colors and started handing them out to anyone who registered on his website as a Bedi, and you could access it at a ShopRite Checkers or at a Spar or at a Pick and Pay. And once you registered, the next time you go to Checkers, you can just give them a code and pick up your bracelet. And then you started seeing people at your work or children that go to school with your kids that have all these bracelets and have all these colors on them, and you can identify them just by that as a Bedi. This in itself gives the king power, but also preserves the culture and starts to bring those people together and teaches them something about their culture, because that bracelet could have meaning. These are the sort of things the monarchs in this country should be doing, and not engaging too much in politics, even though this would give them a lot of power. This is where the government would have to be wise and limit the kings in this country and write very strict laws about what powers kings have. But you must remember, these kings have influence over people. So if a king wants to bring up someone from their tribe to be president or to be a mayor or to be someone like that and fund that sort of thing, well, then they could fundraise among their own people.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
Now, this would bring different challenges. However, the fundamental nature of this is this. The monarchs would be preserving their languages, their history, and their culture, and building strong people. The contestation of different people for power, now that's something else. That's something different and something quite natural and will happen anyway. All I'm saying is the sort of people that could be built out of this by useful monarchs instead of the way we're using them now, or they're using themselves now. The sort of people that could be developed out of this are the sort of people who wouldn't be crying racism truthfully or untruthfully because they see themselves as someone needing approval from someone else, where that person's approval is that significant in their life. Jan Braai didn't do it, and he's innocent, and the video proves it, and the man that lied about him is a scumbag for doing so. Heritage Day reminds us how weak people are because they do not know who they are and they do not know themselves, and how ineffective our monarchs have become, and how effective a clever monarch really could be. In conclusion, the monarchs need to shape up. If they really wanted real power, they shouldn't suck at the teat of government. They should unite their people and actually do what monarchs do: bring people together and create a vision for your group. A saying by John Calvin: "Yet civil government has as its appointed end, so long as we live among men, to adjust our life to the society of men, to form our social behavior to civil righteousness, to reconcile us with one another, and to promote and foster general peace and tranquility." That is what we require in South Africa and in this nation. And when people lie about other people, calling them racist, that doesn't help. I recommend we stop that, and we remember who we are in our languages, in our culture, and in our history, so that we build ourselves and do not only see ourselves as human through the eyes of other people, whether they give us a Boerewors role or not. The case is closed, my friend. Jan Braai is innocent, leave him alone. The man who took the Boerewors role, he should have just enjoyed his Boerewors role and shut up. And the monarchs in South Africa need to wise up. Start classes for your language and your culture, and start forming your people into a real grouping. Build your own museums, build your own cultural sites if you really want some influence. But remember, this is a democracy. You are limited. You are limited to only your cultural group in cultural ways. Let me know what you think. Remember not to forget that you can get access to a short course on our Buy Me a Coffee page. Just follow the links in the description, and if you become a member, you'll get the course and a digital comic book emailed to you every single month. If you can't buy us a coffee or get the membership, just join our mailing list. The link is in the description, and you can get one digital comic book emailed to you.